Hello, dear listeners. I am used to say this on podcast. However, today we are here live on social media, and we will be talking about how to prepare your organization for the EU Pay Transparency Directive, which is kind of new, but not that new, because some of the parts of it we are already using and implementing, and we will cover today what laws are currently in force, upcoming changes, which organizations will be affected the most, how the directive will impact recruitment processes, and the new directive, if it is opportunity or if it is a threat, as some HR people are saying, and some bureaucracy, or is it an opportunity to upgrade your organization and improve your employer branding overall? So then we will have the summary of all that we have discussed here today. And if you are not able to stay until the end, we will save this recording and you can rewatch it later. And those of you who have signed up or would like to get our summary and takeaway checklist, we can send it to you by email. Please write your email where you would like to get it or reach out directly to us. So, which laws are currently in force? And what is our current practice? So the right currently to equal pay for work of equal value is already established in Article 157 of the EU Treaty and Directive, and the principle of equal opportunities is about discrimination based on gender in the area of base is prohibited. However, all employees, we all know that all employees must be paid fairly regardless of gender. However, in practice, we see that women's salary expectations are much lower sometimes during the recruitment process, during the interviews. And according to social insurance data, in some countries, this pay gap can be up to from 13%. In depending on countries, this can be up to 30%, and it is still huge. So this new directive is trying to protect and decrease the gap in pay and make it more equal for both men and women, and to avoid this gender gap. So only large companies have implemented pay systems and their quality is not monitored. The approach is often simply, it matters to have a system, and employers are required to disclose the offered salary or salary range in job advertisements. And I can compare this practice within European Union countries, because people who are coming from European Union countries and they are seeking for a job in Scandinavia, they are used to already that salaries are announced already in advance, and you can have a look what are the conditions and so on. And this is very interesting because it takes a few years to get used to new practices, but this good practice is working and people already are using it and applying for their own benefit to get equal pay. So it is prohibited to use discriminatory job titles, especially in certain languages, of course, because it's also linguistic nuances. Employers often state in employment contracts that salary information is confidential. So this this new directive, it will help to prevent from unfair decision making, I would say so. So currently, what is the legislation that companies, especially those with more than 50 employees, they must prepare pay structure based on responsibility, skills, effort and working conditions, and define procedures for salary increases. However, the quality of such structures is not evaluated for now, and employees may request a report showing their own salary and the average salary of employees working in the same or similar range of job positions across the organization, and compare it if it is equal pay, if they are paid the same bonuses, if it is fair, and also based on gender. And employers cannot prohibit employees from sharing salary information. Sometimes there was the practice that nobody could be talking and the information is asked to be confidential. Sometimes in work contracts you would see such clauses that information is confidential and should not be revealed and so on. However, we all know what is happening within organization and nobody can stop that, so people talk, but now it will be official and publicly available upon request. And employee representatives may request annual information on the gender pay gap. If the gap exceeds 5%, the employer must provide an explanation within 6 months. So why is it important? The existing rules form the foundation for the new regulation, and many EU laws already align with the principles of this directive. So what are the changes, key requirements of the directive? First of all, it will strongly affect recruitment processes because employers will be required to inform candidates about the starting salary and salary range before the interview and in the job advertisement. Of course, currently we are already doing that, and it is demanded already, and we are using, and it allows recruiters or any hiring manager to save a lot of time, because first of all, whenever you are publishing the range or the salary which is determined for this position, candidates can evaluate if this salary matches their needs, wants, and existing salary, and they can decide then if they would like to apply or not, if they're interested or not, and so on. If or when it was not determined, it would complicate the recruitment process, because it would be that people who are applying, they have higher expectations, somebody maybe will have lower expectation, and they would be hired for that. So I think that equal pay allows more definition to come into organizations, more clarity, and together with this, the processes will be much fairer from the candidate's perspective, but also will make processes for hiring much easier from employers' perspective. So also, employers will be prohibited from asking about previous salaries. If they do ask, the candidate is not required to answer, and the refusal cannot be used as a reason not to hire. What is the logic behind that is that our previous salary should not be determining the decision as of now. And also what is interesting here is that sometimes companies have some budget, and whenever they are asking, so what have you been earning in this similar position, let's say now, it can be used as a leverage for negotiation, that look, maybe they have bigger budget for this position. However, if the person would say, oh, I have received this amount, they would offer the smaller amount as well. So now in this case, it does not matter what you have been earning before, based on your skills, based on this position, based on what other people working in similar position within the organization are getting. This is the salary range, and you cannot get higher, lower, and so on. So this will be more keeping to the principle of fairness. Employees' right to information. So employees may request the average pay level by gender for the work they perform. Employers must disclose the criteria for pay setting and career progression, which must be objective and gender neutral. So what will be the key requirements of this directive as well. So first of all, pay reporting. Employers with more than 250 employees must submit pay reports annually. Employers with the range of employees from 100 to 249 employees must report every 3 years. So employers with fewer than 100 employees will not be required to submit reports. However, that it's not required does not mean it can be used, because people will get used to this, and transparency can be also becoming one of the key values within organization leading, and it will also improve employer branding if you don't have to, but you are keeping to this. So it's a huge benefit for your organization. So the deadlines for the first reports differ. Companies with more than 150 employees must report in June next year for this year, while companies with employees from 100 to 149 employees must report in June 2031 for 2030, so they have more time to prepare. So one interesting thing, it's that directive requires that if the internal gender pay gap is more than 5% and cannot be justified by objective gender neutral criteria and is not eliminated within 6 months, the employer must conduct a joint pay assessment with employee representatives and prepare action plans. So this is not only about talking, this is not about formal, but this is about action plan. And the right to compensation and burden of proof, it is already going on employers' side. So first of all, employees who experience discrimination may claim full compensation. The burden of proof is shifted, and responsibility goes to the employer. And the directive also covers intersectional discrimination, such as gender plus disability and so on. So interesting update, soft skills, which is sometimes like very vague term. For example, emotional and social skills are introduced as part of the assessment criteria. So these may be inherent to certain positions, such as healthcare workers, teachers, etc., and along with effort and level of responsibility. So this creates a task for managers and HR specialists when preparing for annual performance reviews, how to define how these positions that are much closely related or determined with soft skills, how is this evaluated, how people in these roles are measured, why this person over that person is getting different pay. So what are the criteria? It is a lot about setting the right processes in here. So it is essential to define criteria not only for base pay, but also for additional benefits, such as bonuses, variable pay components, and other perks. For example, let's say now we have actually recently had a live event where we were talking about how to lead people within an organization that are representing different age gaps. So for different age gap, there can be different motivating perks and benefits. And in this case, we need to clearly define, for example, why one employee receives supplementary life insurance and medical coverage of medical expenses, and the other one is getting a gym membership, while another one does not. How is the bonus determined? What is the pay, and so on. So this criteria is very important, that it is defined very specifically, that it is also very fair. So what criteria determine why an employee is placed in a specific group and why others are grouped together with them? This is very important to define. And we will also need to provide information to social insurance, not only about salaries, but also about working time, so that it can be evaluated if the person working exactly the same time will be getting equal pay as the person working elsewhere in a similar position. So penalty limits are removed if the principle of equal pay is violated, or we can say if somebody is being discriminated and the pay gap is more than 5%. So consequences apply retroactively from the moment of the violation. So directive obliges EU member states to establish effective, proportionate, and dissuasive sanctions, and affected employees have the right to full compensation, including overdue payments and bonuses and so on, back on the date. So who is affected by this new directive? It's all organizations, but especially those with more than 100 employees operating in EU member states. HR specialists who prepare job advertisements and pay structures, and recruitment agencies which will need to adjust their candidate sourcing and presentation processes, interviewing managers, hiring managers, financial managers who plan budget and conduct salary analysis. So some companies have been postponing this, and now I can see that already requests and is looking for and coming after, who is able to help to determine the documentation and evaluation. So it is, if you have not prepared, this is already the time to do that. So what is the impact on recruitment? Recruitment agencies will be required to disclose salary ranges on behalf of their clients and communicate transparently. This will increase candidate trust and reduce the risk of prolonged negotiation processes, because from the beginning it will be very clear in the job ads. And it will be prohibited to ask about previous salary, meaning agencies and employers, hiring managers will need to rely on market data and objective criteria. Why this salary over the other one? And employer transparency will strengthen employer branding. Candidates will, I think, will place a greater value on additional advantages, career opportunities, culture, rather than salary alone. And of course, whenever we are speaking about higher positions, this is getting more and more relevant. So the new directive is opportunity. And why is it so? Transparency increases trust, faster inclusion, and helps attract and retain talent. So a fair and well-structured pay system strengthens employer reputation and reduces the risk of legal disputes. So I think this is very important that we assess the current situation, what is it in our organization, conduct a gender pay gap analysis, publish clear job advertisements. If you have some available, you need to review and see if everything is set fairly, if the salary is there, if titles and everything is not discriminating the genders. And train your managers and HR specialists. Also collaborate with experts and determine where gaps could be identified for your organization, what you need to change, what you need to adjust. So it seems like the directive sounds that it is a huge change coming in, but I think that it's not, first of all, that very new. It has been implemented over the years, and it is establishing pay transparency. And we do need to work on equal pay and discrimination by gender or across different possible discrimination ranges. So it will now clearly indicate salary ranges and use gender neutral criteria, which in some linguistic terms is already being done, but in practice sometimes differences happen and we still the change. We still see and measure the changes in especially pay gap. Employers with 100 employees will be required to submit gender pay gap reports and take corrective measures if the pay gap exceeds 5%. And knowing that the pay difference can be quite high, it is quite some work to do up until now. Employers will be prohibited from asking candidates about their previous salaries, while employers will be free to share their pay information. Employees will be free to share their pay information and request additional data. And transparency is opportunity to improve reputation, attract talent, and reduce discrimination. And pay may also be assessed and compared across related companies, branches, and cities. It is very interesting to see how this is affecting smaller countries, for example, in the Baltics, because the pay salary range can be different across the cities, across the countries. And sometimes if the same company has some branches across the borders, this can also be coming into attention that there is a pay gap, and you need to have very clear settings why somebody working in organization in one branch and the other one city and the other one are getting very different salary ranges. So you need to have very clear and transparent rules and procedures, and assess even based on these two different sectors. It is important to define and correctly group employees, as well as establish salary ranges, bonuses, indexation rules, additional benefits, and criteria for salary increases, and also not to forget those who are not only in different regions, in different countries, different company branches, but also those who are on maternity, paternity leaves, and especially keep in mind if you have people who are being who are working on more big social competences, and how you evaluate those competences, because soft skills is where you can have, if not well defined, where you can have the biggest miscommunication and gap in evaluation and the differences. So you need to set very clear, carefully planned KPIs for that, for performance reviews. During annual reviews, provide feedback on goal achievement and expectations. This is also very interesting, because lately we also see that it is changing, and also together with the gaps, age gaps, with different generations, how the feedback culture is changing, because earlier it would be employer providing the feedback, and now it is not only employer providing the feedback, but also employee providing and giving feedback to the leader or employer. And it is changing as well. I think with this new directive, we will have new culture of organizations that will be forming. So the entire organization is responsible for implementation. It is starting from accounting to top management. It's not only about HR. Sometimes whenever we're talking in the live events about employer branding, that whoever is responsible, if it is about employment, if it is about people, it's usually HR. However, in this case, it is all entire organization. And I know that a lot of people are saying that you have teams widespread and people working remotely, hybrid mode. This is the book that I have recently published. It's about Remote is Human, building teams that belong. Either you have a team that is based remotely, hybrid, or in teams. You can adjust these tips and tricks in the book for your team, and you can get it on Amazon. And we will also be hosting a event on May 4th, at 11 o'clock, and we will be speaking about employer branding in the age of AI, how AI is shifting how we are leading organizations, how we are creating employer branding. So this is one of our most popular topics, and that's it for now. I am thanking those who stayed until the end. If you would like, we can stay connected. You can scan the code and get connected with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for being here with us.